Jake here to feature a blaster in review that's a throwback in multiple ways. In one way, I haven't had this thing on the channel in probably about 6 years. And yeah, the channel's been around for a long time. When you know you can say that, something hasn't been featured on the channel for over half a decade. That makes it feel like I've been doing this a long time. But the blaster hasn't been on the channel in about that long, and it never did get its own true review. Even though I did feature it before, it was featured in amongst other blasters with a special feature about blasters that had lights built into them. And this blaster is the Busby Air Warriors Night Tek. And one of its things is that it does have, indeed, a light feature. I'll get to that here in a second. But it is pretty standard in that it is a spring-powered pistol-style blaster with a 6-round capacity that is front-loaded. And unlike most pistols have some sort of a rear prime or top prime where it's got a loop, like say Busby's own Blitz. It has a loop pull. You got things like X-Shot's Reflex it does. Some have a T-pull at the back. And then some have a kind of half rear, half top slide prime like the venerable Strong Arm or Disruptor from Nerf. Now, Busby themselves has made pump action pistols before. The Zenith is pretty much my favorite pistol of all time, that especially when you're not trying to run it as something you holster, when you're actually using it as your primary. Because it can be modded to hit well over 150 feet per second, especially if you go to half length. But it has a pump action, which so does the Night Tek. That's why I mentioned the Zenith, because just like the Night Tek here, you prime it with a pump action. Unlike the Zenith, though, this is not a true powerhouse. It has decent performance. With Busby's newer darts, which I call the Angry Gremlin darts, they just look like they're mad at you. Looks like it's yelling or trying to bite you. But with these, I was averaging just over 72 feet per second at 72.1, which is not, going to blow anybody away. It's just a notch above Nerf with their pretty, absolute generic 70 feet per second that we always use as our standard to measure against. But Busby's own blasters are hitting higher than that, and that kind of betrays the fact that this is an older design. Doesn't mean bad. It's still neat in a couple ways. With the pump action, which strikes some people as odd when you are talking about, well, you can't really holster it because of that. It's kind of big and chunky. I mean, certainly you could make a big box style holster and slide this thing down in, but it's a larger form factor for a pistol. But also, that is a neat operational feature. Instead of your typical pull from behind, it's a pump, which for a number of reasons, like say a smaller user, that's easy to use. It's pretty ergonomic. You can put your hand in front of it. You can even push, if you're struggling with strength, you can actually push against it. I mention that because when my daughter was really little, she used to use this a lot. Not this exact one, because I just bought this recently, but one of a previous generation, she used this quite a bit because she could do that. Push her arms together, and it made it really easy to prime. And then, of course, we got to get to the whole gimmick or feature, because contained in the right-hand side of the grip is a battery compartment. Why would you have a battery compartment on a spring-powered blaster? Well, because on the left side of the shell, there's this orange bar that when you press it, it's actually a button. Up pops a little sight. The sight is eerily similar to what was kind of my favorite Busby sight, outside of the thermal sight. That little slip-on, it's almost like an ACOG style. That's what they're trying to make it reminiscent of. But it pops up, and it's just see-through plastic on both ends. But it does have a little crosshair embossed onto one of the plastic caps. And when you then pull the trigger halfway, it has two little green LEDs, one on either side of the sight, and as you can see, it is quite bright. So they're trying to do like a night vision effect, because the little LEDs, they're right there on both sides, and it is very bright. It's just kind of one of those neat gimmicks that it is a gimmick, but it isn't, because it does work. I mean, those are bright enough to light up, whatever's in front of you. And if you look through the sight, because of the location of those little green LEDs, it almost gives you a night vision effect. It's not night vision, of course. Disclaimer there. I'm not claiming it to be. But when you look through it, of course, if you're actually doing a nighttime battle, everybody can see that green light. It's an easy way to have people shooting at your hands that are holding the blaster. You can also poke it around the corner and just kind of see if you get return fire. But it is kind of a fun blaster. And yes, every single time that you fire, you do get the green light. But you can also just depress this back down and it locks into place. And while you can clearly see the lights are still going, it's down in the shell, so it pretty much hides it for the most part. You can just see through the gap there. And then, as soon as you want the sight back up, hit the orange bar here, and it pops right back up. Now, over the years, I've had as many as about 6 of these things. And they have been so rock-solid reliable. It's just a basic performer that, for household wars, the true traditional things that you did as a family, when you're growing up, playing, somebody's hiding behind a sofa, somebody else is behind a chair, somebody's down the hallway, This is like ideal for that. Shut the lights off in the house and then go hide and seek Nerf style. This is perfect, for the genuine silly fun of what blasters can bring. So no, I'm not going to rate this against other blasters out there. It's a fun option, and I haven't even gotten to the price. It's about $10 overall. Depending on where you get it, it ranges, I've seen it priced from $9, $8.99, up to about $11.99. So it hovers there. And the one only complaint is, because it has the rotational, I should say, there's 2 complaints we'll say, because the rotational barrel is not a real issue. This cylinder, we'll say cylinder, this does not rotate itself. The plunger tube inside rotates. And I've went over this in many videos. When you've got the rotating plunger tube, it is turning in there and it lines up the air exit of the plunger tube to one of the 6 barrels. The positive is you get consistent performance. Like that 72 feet per second average is pretty much dead on within 1 or 2 feet per second at most. And that's down to barrel fit and dart fit. So it's more of your darts, if they're the same quality, like all brand new, you're going to get about 72, 72, 72, 73, 71, 72. Like that. That's how your chronograph session will read. Versus Nerf's Smart AR system, which has a series of check valves kind of that run through. And the first barrel will be real good. Second one will be a little less, then a little less, little less, little less, little less. Or you can have the rotating cylinder, like most do, and that works out to be the same as this. But Busby went for a stationary exterior. I don't know if that was just to simplify things mechanically for them, because of course those rotational mechanisms, they're good and they've been proven, but they can fail. So just an interesting design choice. It boils down to, you just need to remember where you loaded last, or just throw 6 darts in and start fresh. So if you just pick up 1 or 2 darts and then try to fire it, you might not put the dart where it needs to be for the next shot. That's the only drawback. So long rambling description of the rotating plunger tube versus a Smart AR versus a traditional rotating cylinder. It's a different way of doing things. But the one true complaint, because that's not really a complaint, it's just an observation, is look at the grip. Look at that grip. It has the biggest hook on the grip, on the bottom of the grip. That has the biggest hook that you're going to see on any dart pistol. And it's quite simple. Your hand fits or it doesn't. It is a hard stop. And mine doesn't fit. Mine doesn't. That's simple. I've said before in my videos, I wear a XL glove size, and I'm an adult guy. So it's not made for me. It's made for a kid, and it's made for an adult to possibly be able to use it as well. And it's a hard stop for me. I do not have, I don't have fat fingers, but I can't fit them on this blaster. It's not going to happen. So Pinky decides to just go and do its own thing, and that's just how it is. I mean, you can try to jam it in there, but you pretty much just end up wrapping it around the hook, and it's kind of odd. And that is a absolute issue there. If they didn't put the hook, this would be a amazing grip. And yes, one of the best things you can do if you're going to mod these up is cut that off, fill the gap with epoxy, and then wrap it with a bit of my old faithful tennis racket tape. And then you have a fantastic grip once you do those things. As it is, that hard hook, that is a huge, huge issue because it's just simple. Your hand's not going to fit as an adult. You know, you got one for the trigger, and then you're going to fit 2 fingers as an adult there. And that's the complaint. Otherwise, it's a solid blaster with a neat gimmick in that it pops up and shines lights. That's the Busby Night Tek. I'm glad they still make the thing because these kind of blasters, they're not going to be, you know, the favorite in the hobby or the enthusiast who actually are doing 5-on-5s. But you certainly could take this for HVZ because it will take a spring upgrade, and you could rebarrel it with brass to fire half lengths. So you could get some more performance out of it. And this one here is actually, that's the plan. This one's going to be modded. I've never featured a mod video for the Busby Night Tek. So stay tuned for that at some point. No promises on when. But it will get done sometime here through the winter. So stay tuned and keep an eye out for that. And I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.